Hi everyone, my name is Abdul and I am the social media and community manager here at Claro. So we are Claro, a digital financial coaching community working towards empowering people to make smarter financial decisions every day. And this is another episode of Abdul Asks, where we are exploring people's personal experience in finance, but also learning a bit more about what they do. Today we have a special guest, Holly, who I'll get to introduce herself and what she does on her Instagram page, and then we'll go straight into the questions. So hi Holly, nice to meet you.
Hi, how are you?
I am good, thank you. We were just saying, how weird is it to talk online and not see people face to face? It's such a strange way to communicate now, but this is the norm.
It's difficult, yeah.
How are you finding this whole lockdown experience?
Yeah, it's not been too bad. I've relocated to my parents for the second lockdown because I don't fancy being stuck in my flat again. But yeah, I mean, it's good. It's given me time to focus on my blog and stuff like that, which you probably wouldn't have normally when you're commuting and working really long hours.
Well, your blog is amazing. Talk us a little bit more about your blog and what you do.
Thank you. So I set up Get Woke Not Broke last year. And the aim is to kind of help young people get their financial together, essentially. So I'm an investment consultant in my kind of day job, which means I basically advise institutional investors where to put their money. And I just realised that there's loads of stuff I'm learning through this, which can easily apply to our kind of personal finances that we're not taught about. And the finance industry does a good job of making things quite complicated. So I thought I would kind of just try and make things a bit more easier and accessible for young people.
Amazing. So it'd be really interesting to know is, have you always been focused on personal finance? When did you start and what kicked off you to get involved in that space?
Yeah, I think, so I started working 3 years ago when I graduated, and I very quickly kind of got into that keeping up with the Joneses, I would say, kind of thing where you're working in finance. We always were out every night drinking loads. We were spending money on nice things. I was buying nice handbags, spending a lot on rent, and I just realised that I was earning a decent salary as a grad, but I just wasn't saving or investing anything or thinking about what I actually wanted out of life. And I think a lot of my friends were in a similar position, particularly, so I mainly advise pension funds, so I'm kind of quite passionate about pensions, as lame as that sounds. But I think a lot of young people that's something that they put off, and a lot of my friends had opted out of their pension, and that kind of then flagged to me, oh, hold on a second, we need to start thinking about this stuff. And I need to be thinking about this stuff as well. So yeah, I guess that's when it really changed, when I realised that I had a decent amount of money, but I wasn't actually doing much with it.
I think that's the case for a lot of people, to be honest. I think you touched on the fact that younger people may not be aware about personal finance. I mean, I don't think it's an age thing, but I think it is important for young people to be aware of how to get more involved in their finance. Why do you think pensions, for example, is so key at a younger age?
Yeah, so obviously pensions are I think a lot of people don't realise this, but it's not kind of some pot of cash that you're just setting aside for when you're old and not able to do anything. It is kind of buying you financial freedom, and it's invested, so you make returns on it. So the sooner you start paying in, the less you have to pay in, essentially, because you're making loads of returns from the compounding effect and also from investment returns. But also when you pay into your pension, if you're employed, you're getting a lot of free money from the government and from your employer in terms of contributions. So effectively, you're getting a pay rise without doing any extra work. And I think a lot of people just think of, oh, I'm giving up £100 every month that I could be spending on myself just to go into my pension for when I'm old, and I'll worry about that later. Mm-hmm. But you're not thinking about, well, you're getting a free £100 or whatever it may be from your employer, which can really help you build up a nice pot so that you can have a nice retirement.
Has there been something that you've kind of learned through sort of sharing your information about pensions, but has your own personal finance changed as you've gone on?
Yeah, definitely. So when I first started working, I just didn't opt out, basically, which meant I was just paying in the minimum amount possible, which I think in total is around 8% of your salary, which is 4% from you and 4% from your employer and the government. But realistically, that isn't going to be enough for you to survive on in retirement if you want a nice life. And we don't want to be working hard throughout our lives to then have some crappy retirement in when you're basically living in poverty. So I've now increased my contributions up to the maximum, and then my employer matches that. So I'm now putting in 15% in total of my pension, which is kind of the of my salary, into my pension, which is the kind of key number that I think experts say we should be driving for. So that's been a key difference.
Do you do any things or any other investments to support you kind of in your future financial?
Yeah, so obviously you don't want to lock up all your money into a pension because you can't access it until you're like 55, 57. So I've also opened a stocks and shares ISA. It was quite handy because my work kind of offered for you to put money into a stocks and shares ISA straight out of your salary, so it never came to you. So that was a really nice thing that they did. And had they not done that, I probably wouldn't have been thinking about it right now, but they kind of pushed me into doing that. And so, yeah, it's handy to actually think about your goals, I think, because before I was just saving my money in cash in my current account, which is not very helpful. So thinking about where you can invest to help you save up more money is really good.
That's cool. And then what gave you the idea to start a blog? Like I said, it's amazing, so definitely go check that out. What made you want to share your experiences online?
Yeah, I just think I'm the first in my family to kind of go to uni, work in finance, anything like that. And I just thought I'm kind of quite blessed where I work to be surrounded by these really intelligent people that know a lot about money. And it's kind of unfair that I've got this advantage about knowing about investing just through my career, where it's a real kind of, it can really influence your kind of financial freedom and give you a tool to actually live a life you want to live. And so it should be information that's available to everyone. You shouldn't have to work in finance to kind of get the advantage of knowing about this information.
Oh, agreed. And then part of what we're doing at Claro is focusing on ESG scoring and ethical investments. And you yourself have spoken about impact and ethical investment on your page. Why do you think that's really important for us to consider?
Yeah, so I think as a younger generation in particular, we're like really focused on climate change and sustainability and stuff like that. There's a kind of charity, I think, called Make My Money Matter, who published some research the other day that said that if you invest your pension sustainably, that can have a 27 times more of an impact on benefiting the environment than if you were to be vegan and give up flying altogether. And I think we're very conscious of like, oh, we won't eat meat and we won't do long haul flights. But really, if we just invested our pension in a sustainable way, that could have a much greater impact on the environment. And also there's research now showing that if you're investing in these kind of sustainable companies, your returns could be greater because obviously they're well positioned for what the future is going to be, hopefully.
Yeah, I think you make an interesting point. I had someone last week who is an ethical expert, and he spoke about some sort of, I mean, I'm not going to say the brand's name, but some brands who have they're definitely ethical products, but you're not thinking about kind of the aftermath of certain investments that you make. So, you know, you have electric powered cars, which could be useful, but then the batteries, and when they get disposed, you know, you're not thinking potentially actually it's not using, fuel, and we're saving our planet. But then are we actually thinking about what happens to all those batteries that are not in use or whatever? So like there definitely is more to investments than just what you see. I think you need to kind of dive deeper. So that's a great point, I think. And then obviously a big part of your messaging is pensions. Why is that for you super important, and why do you think it's important for people to get more involved?
Yeah, so I guess for me it's important because this is kind of like what I do in my day job essentially. So I just realized, this is something that sounds so boring, but it is really important. And the earlier you start, the less you have to do about it. And also, aside from if you buy a house, your pension is probably likely to be your largest asset. So it can, if you use it for good, it can really have a big impact. And I think so kind of the regulations in pensions at the moment are really striving towards kind of being net zero and really investing in line with kind of climate stuff. So really there's a big area there to actually use your money for good, which I think is great. And obviously you can do that in your usual investments, but as kind of a individual investor, the products just aren't really there right now to be having a really good impact, I would say. But through your pension, you can invest in some really great stuff that really has an impact, and it's just cheaper.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And then finally, what would be your money saving top tip or win for our audience?
I would say payday bayday is kind of like my payday slogan, which basically means pay yourself before anyone else. So I like to kind of automate my savings, and so I've just set up kind of automated payments to go to my stocks and shares ISA, to my savings account for my traveling fund and stuff like that. I just think if you can automate things, it makes things quicker and easier, and also you don't get tempted to spend the money that you're meant to be saving.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's just makes it hassle free, right? If you have everything sort of in place, then it's not something you have to consciously think about. So yeah, that's a great tip. And then obviously let our audience know where we can find you and any upcoming projects that you're working on.
Yeah, so you can find me on www.getwokenotbroke.com. I'm also on Instagram, and I've also recently joined TikTok, which I feel super old being on there with all the kids, but that's really fun. In terms of upcoming projects, I'm doing some stuff on like buying vs renting soon, so I think that's kind of quite an interesting thing, because I think we're really pressured to kind of buy houses when it might not be the best financial decision for us.
Amazing. Well, thank you for coming on the show, and we'll see everyone next week.